To welcoming President Trump here to the United Kingdom sometime this year, if that's possible. But of course, in terms of state visits, that's a matter for Buckingham Palace, and they haven't announced the visits for this year yet.
What did you make of his inauguration speech?
Well, I think his inauguration speech had a very clear message to it, which is the message that he gave during his campaign about putting America first. But if you think about it, any leader, any government, as we do here in the United Kingdom, when we look at any issue, we ensure that we're putting UK's interests and the interests of British people first.
And you're going on Friday to talk to him, is that right?
Yes, I'm going to be at the end of the week, and I shall be meeting him on Friday and talking to him on Friday. And there'll be many issues for us to talk about, because obviously the special relationship between the UK and the US has been strong for many years. We'll have opportunity to talk about our possible future trading relationship, but also some of the world challenges that we all face, issues like defeating terrorism, the conflict in Syria.
Because this is a man that Britain both needs, but is also incredibly divisive. Your own policy chief, George Freeman, said that the inauguration speech you've just praised was deliberately divisive and confrontational and showed the politics of hate, and a lot of people agree with him.
Yeah. What I think is important is that when I sit down with Donald Trump, I'm going to be able to talk about how we can build on that special relationship. He's already said to me that he wants to see a very strong relationship between the UK and the US going into the future. There are issues that we will work together on in the future, the importance of NATO, for example, as I've said, defeating terrorism. These are issues where we share the challenges, we see the threats, and we have worked together in the past and will in the future.
You are now one of the most prominent women political leaders in the world. 2 million women marched against what Donald Trump had said about women yesterday, all around the world. Now, you must be torn, as a sense, between somebody who wants to get a good deal from Donald Trump and somebody who is going to talk truth to this particular version of power. Which is it going to be? Will you raise the issue of his treatment of women when you talk to him?
Well, first of all, I've already said that some of the comments that Donald Trump has made in relation to women are unacceptable. Some of those he himself has apologised for.
It's a bit different.
When I sit down, I think the biggest statement that will be made about the role of women is the fact that I will be there as a female Prime Minister, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, talking to him, directly talking to him about the interests that we share. I've got a track record.
You won't raise it directly.
Andrew, I've got a track record. If you look at everything I've done in terms of defending the interests of women, the work I've done on modern slavery, on domestic violence and so forth, I'm proud to be only the second female Prime Minister that the United Kingdom has had. Both of us Conservatives, you know, the Conservative Party has put female Prime Ministers here. I will be talking to Donald Trump about the issues that we share, about how we can build on this special relationship. It's the special relationship that also enables us to say when we do find things unacceptable.
And you will say that to him?
Whenever there is something that I find unacceptable, I won't be afraid to say that to Donald Trump.
All right. Now, you mentioned NATO just now. He has called NATO obsolete.
No, he has shown also, I've spoken to him about NATO. NATO is an important, very important. NATO has been the bulwark of our security here in Europe, and we work together in NATO. We've both made the point before about contributions being made by countries. United Kingdom is spending 2% of its GDP on defence. I believe that's important.
Do you agree with what he said about other NATO countries not paying their way?
Well, there are other NATO countries that are also paying 2% of their GDP on defence, and others that are working towards doing that. What is important is that we recognise the value of NATO, which he does, the value of NATO as an organisation that is helping us to defend Europe and defend the interests of all of those allies who are in NATO.
Now, post-Brexit, we need a good free trade deal from Donald Trump, and yet this is the most protectionist president America has had for a very, very long time. You are lauding free trade at Davos in Switzerland. The Chinese talk about free trade. Donald Trump wants to tear up free trade agreements, and he said, buy America, hire American. How is this going to be a man that we can do a good deal with?
Well, he's also, he and people around him have also spoken about the importance of a trade arrangement with the United Kingdom, and that is something that they're looking to talk to us about at an early stage, and I would expect to be able to talk to him about that alongside the other issues I'll be discussing with him when I'm in Washington. I think free trade is important around the world. I believe globalisation is important. I believe this does bring economic benefits to our countries, but we do need to make sure, as I said in Davos this week, that those economic benefits, that prosperity, is spread across the whole of the UK. That's why I'm introducing a modern industrial strategy this week, so that we can ensure that we're building on the strengths of our economy across the whole of the UK.
Schools. This is putting a new layer into the education system, as it were, below universities, but technical education, which isn't really provided for a lot of people in this country at the moment.
Well, it's a variety of things. Yes, we will be putting an emphasis on technical education. We'll be looking at how we can extend some of the very successful specialist maths schools that we've seen across the country. But it's also, crucially, about bringing all parts of government together that have an impact on the economy and on industry across the whole range of sectors. It includes services as well as manufacturing. It's about saying, what are our strengths? As we come out of the European Union, we're coming together as a country. We're forging our future. We're shaping a new future for the UK as a global Britain. And how can we do that?
Might this be a moment when we see a real pivot, a real change in our industrial and economic position? Because we know that we're going to lose some banking jobs. Let's not argue about how many. Some banking jobs will go at one end of the economy. Ever since I've been reporting politics, people have been saying we're too reliant on the financial services, we don't do enough manufacturing. Is this a moment when that perhaps changes?
Well, we've already seen in the last few years some adjustment in the economy in the UK. But what the modern industrial strategy will be about will be saying, what is the shape of the economy that we want for the future? Where are the successful sectors that we can help to encourage to grow? But also, what are the sectors that we need to look at for the future too? Yeah. You've mentioned technical education, but there's a lot we can do in science and innovation. Sir Mark Walport, our chief scientist, is looking at a battery institute, battery technology. We're leading the way on that already. There's a lot more that we can do. So where are the sectors that we can build on for the future? But crucially, let's look at the strengths of the whole of the United Kingdom to make sure that this is an economy that works for everyone. This is part of my overall plan for Britain.
Right. Now, you made a very, very important speech at Lancaster House this week when you were talking about your plans for Brexit. You've been working on it for months and months and months, so I'm sure it was very much thought through. And in that speech, you said that if Britain had to walk away from a bad deal inside the EU, and I'm quoting you here, we would have the freedom to set the competitive tax rates and embrace the policies that would attract the world's best companies